to it. But we're going to talk about the addition or subtraction of a player. So Sam's going to share the question. It is more of kind of a culture question. We'll answer that first, but then we're going to dive into how it actually affects your X's and O's too, and running of your offense specifically when it comes to basketball. So Sam?
Yeah, thanks, TJ. And this comes from Coach Espinoza. Listens, he's a high school coach out in California. His team made a Final Four run last year, and this is his first off season with his program. So obviously coming off a lot of success. I'm paraphrasing his question here, and they ended up getting a really good, solid player in the transfer who transferred in, and he wanted to know if we had any advice on how to acclimate, bring that transfer in, help them feel like a part of the family while also keeping the players that are returning, feel confident in their roles. And so that's his question.
I feel the same thing. We just lost a Division II National Player of the Year. He's playing in the NBA, going to the Summer League this week to watch him play. Well, that's obviously a big part of our offense. And also, this is a person who's a big leader on your team. There's a whole bunch of things that are going to change just with the removal of one person. But I think sometimes we underestimate, how big that is with a really solid glue guy. They might not even be your best player or best girl, but all of a sudden you lose that player. It's a big difference and a big change. And not everything is just like plug and play. And I think sometimes coaches look at it like that. Well, hey, here's the offense we ran. Here's the defense we run. Now we lose one player, just plug in a new player. But the reality is everything changes when people change. So every year is like a new year, but a lot of times we just think we'll build off the old one. I remember Coach K always saying that every season is a journey of its own with a whole brand new group of people to go on it. And you change and you mold and you morph. And so we will answer the question, on some ways to make them feel comfortable, because we actually deal with this every year. And I think every coach deals with this every year. I made this mistake too many times of just assuming carryover from the previous season. And that's not always the case because things change on the floor, off the floor. So I'll just start us there. What are your thoughts, Sam?
Well, that was my exact thought. Is I've made that mistake too of thinking, oh, we'll just pick back up where we left off, and you can't. That's a mistake, and you do need to start at the ground zero and ground yourself in strong fundamentals. And when I say fundamentals, I'm not talking just on the court. I'm talking really in your culture and your leadership and your relationships. And it is a new year, and so I think for any coaches listening, be aware if you came off a successful season and you return a lot of players, be aware of falling into that trap of feeling like, oh, we'll just pick back up. You're going to have some momentum and you're not starting at square zero. I mean, TJ, you've been running your Emmanuel program for 20 years or close to it. And yes, you get to build off a lot of the culture and leadership principles that you and your Graham and your coaching staff and the players that came before have done. And there's some reality to that, but you have to rebuild it. You have to restructure it from ground up.
Obviously, if you have 10 returners, it's going to go faster. You know what I mean? Because you're only getting one or two or three people to acclimate to the new what's going on. So it's going to go faster. But the reality of it is you still have to teach somebody to pass and cut hard. If you just ignore that, the players that are returning are going to think you don't value the cutting hard anymore. They don't automatically have that habit every time. And the new players are going to be like, well, that was never taught. That was not something. Now, if you teach it and you emphasize it from day one, and it took you previous year to get 3 weeks for them to actually pass and cut hard, you might actually get that out of your team in 3 to 4 days this year because you have so many returners. And those good examples are going to bleed onto everybody else. So it's not saying that you have to start over. Another example would be, player development. You don't just, because you worked on finishing and ball handling all of last year, you don't just assume, well, we can put that one to bed. No, you go back and you start from ground zero. Now, if you have 10 returners, it might progress faster. Same thing with your culture. If you have 10 players that love each other, that really got along, well, you can't just start and pick up from that place because you have new people, like Coach's question. You have new people in the dynamic. And, even those old people, they haven't seen each other in a while, haven't been together maybe. And also they assume new roles. Somebody might be the one A leader and somebody might be the 1B, and that might have shifted and somewhere along all of those things. So it doesn't matter, just like we talk about at PGC coaching, your player development, your culture, your leadership, your offense, your system strategies, everything, even the way you teach, your master teaching, like all of it is going to be different. It doesn't mean you won't have any gained efficiencies from building a program year over year, because we've gained that over 20 years. But at the same time, you just can't assume anything.
Like I would say, when you're bringing a new player, you want to be welcoming and accepting of that new player, just like a new coaching staff member, a new manager, a new film guy, whatever it is. So you want to be accepting of their personality while upholding your values and your standards. And so, to Coach Espinosa's question, that's what I would say to Coach is like, your values and standards. Your players that are returning know that. Make sure that's communicated. That vision is communicated. While also hopefully any coach listening, you have a program and a culture where people matter, where relationships matter. And if that's the case, then you can bring in but you can bring in new people to the fold because it's grounded in strong principles. And so you're not having to do anything different or new or secretive this year because it's grounded in relationships and people matter and culture matters. And I think if you have that in place, the transition can happen more smoothly.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. I think some of the best coaches I've ever been around, they do a great job of feeling the room, feeling the heartbeat of the team. People are territorial, right? And they want their spot. Nobody's an idiot. If you come in and you're the two guard, somebody comes in and they're a really good two guard, you're like, "Ooh, how's that going to affect my playing time, my shots?" Those are all natural feelings. And these are things that we have to help players through to figure out, well, how do I deal with this? How do I welcome somebody? So it's a great question. It's actually looking around the corner by coach, knowing that here's some things that could happen, which is another sign of a good coach. You're looking around the corner about things that could happen, not just assuming I add a player and everything's gravy. You really have to be on high alert, paying attention. How does it affect, Sally? How does it affect Jen? How does it affect, each player? The thing advice I would give here to coach would be this: just be highly alert and catch problems quickly. Don't let them fester. You know what I mean? And when you see all of a sudden somebody's affected because they were in the first group and now they're in the second group, go have that conversation. Go talk to that player. And I get it. I understand. I know this is tough for you, and I know we're asking you to sacrifice something for this team. I think those little daily conversations are the most important.
This is going to be an ongoing thing that, especially in the first month, a coach plays an important role in catching does he see two girls not talking to each other? Does he pick up on that? Or does he see some little snide comments being made? You got to be aware of that. And so I think, to your point, TJ, good coaches see that. They're looking, they're observing, they're evaluating, they're assessing. Should I insert myself here? Whoa, should I come back and do I let the players, can I just let them work it out?
I think it's also important to have other conversations with the team. Like I have these all the time. I really try and the whole playing time and roles and shot selection and all that. I always tell my team this. I'm like, listen, there's only one person to be frustrated with, upset with, mad at, and it's me. If somebody's taking really bad shots, that's on me as a coach because I'm letting it happen. Now, are there certain times when I'm letting certain players take some other shots? Yeah, because, if they're averaging 26 a game, and they're the best player in the country, they've got a little bit longer leash. Now, I still value percentages, and I want to be 50, 40, 90, which, no reach, but I'm, if somebody's 30, 20, 80, and I'm letting those shots happen, that's bad coaching. If somebody's playing time, if player A is playing 30 minutes and player B is playing 10 and player B thinks they should be 20, it's fine to be upset. We can talk about it, but there's only one person that you can blame for that, and that is me. I think you need to take the pressure off your players. It's not, Sally's fault that Jennifer's not playing. You know what I mean? It's my decision. And I think it's really important for players to understand and not take it out on other players, because I'm allowing these shots. I'm allowing these people to play this amount of time. And I think that's relieving a little bit of pressure.
And I think, to that point, though, you're communicating that to the team. A lot of coaches may give the freedom and leeway to the better player, but the fourth best offensive player doesn't know that. The coach is assuming, they know that. And players know, but no, like that fourth best player, especially guys got egos. Like we all think we're better than we are. So if you aren't in a locker room saying, hey, KJ, I'm going to live with 2 or 3 bad shots a game. I tell this to my best player all the time. Like, hey, I'm okay with like 1 or 2 shots a game where I was like, I didn't love it, but I'll live with it. And I tell them that. I said, but when we start getting up into 3, 4, 5 shots a game where it's very questionable, like then we're going to have a conversation. But then I'm also telling that to the rest of the team. Hey, it's okay that KJ, we're going to let him kind of take a few chances here so they can all hear it. And here's why. KJ spends more time in the gym than you. KJ's here before practice, after practice, during the summer. He's getting up 500 shots a day. He's earned that trust. Oh, and he averages 26. Oh, and he shoots 90 from, like, you're giving them back. It's not just you like KJ, but these are analytic, statistical based decisions. But the rest of I think where the mistake is made, coaches don't share that with the rest of the team. And so this goes back to your beginning opening line, which is like X's and O's is not just X's and O's. It is culture intertwined and all of that.
And I do think that any stats that you can grab as a coach are helpful, like just even baseline stats, like what is their 2-point percentage? What is their 3-point percentage? Because when you just start guessing, if you haven't statted anything, you can just watch a game, go back and stat it afterwards, or have some manager stat it, or, in game, maybe have somebody. I think those numbers are important because numbers don't really lie. And if you're just guessing and you're just, this player is going to shoot this and I'm going to let them shoot that, why? This is another thing people don't think about. Sometimes your best shooter shooting 36% from the floor from 3-point land is more important than your 8th best shooter, even if they're shooting 40%. You need your players that aren't as good to shoot high percentages.
Mm-hmm.
And your 2 guard that's getting guarded and face guarding everywhere because they're an elite shooter, shooting 36%, they're stretching the floor. They're changing the dynamics of what's going on because you have to guard them that way. Now, your other player that's not a good shooter, they're open for a reason. They need to shoot 40% or they don't need to be shooting it that much. They're wide open. That same shooter who's a great elite shooter, if they were left wide open all the time, would be high 40s, mid 40s, high 40s. I think that's something that's often left out and forgot about as well. Some players don't understand this. The most important thing is percentages, to winning basketball games. What are your percentages? And sometimes the best way to shoot a high percentage is learn to turn down 1 or 2 bad shots a game.
Yeah.
It's not to make more shots. It's just to turn down the crappy ones that are bringing your percentages down.
Yeah, to build on that, a kid that goes 2 for 5 from 3 and all 5 of his threes or her threes were really good looks, and they went 2 for 5 and they shot 40%. And you're immediate when you shoot 40+%, you're a top shooter in your league at any level most of the time at the 3-point line. Well, now that player takes 2 really tough shots, 2 for 5 goes 2 for 7, and just those 2 misses, you go from a high level shooter to a really average to below average shooter. That's pretty significant. And so you're right. It's oftentimes just an awareness of like, stop taking bad shots.
Now let's talk a little bit about the offensive end. And so, I'll just give my example is, we had a pro on our team, an NBA player on our team. And so, and on top of that with really high percentages. So a lot of what we did had to go through that. I think sometimes the player's assumption is like, oh, who gets his role next year? Like I'm going to step in and that's not the situation. You have to look at it now. And I've stepped back from my team and I think we did this because it was best for our team in that time frame. But now we take one player out of there and it changes everything. And look, it might change some stuff for the better. We might be harder to guard because everybody knew who the ball was going to on the floor a lot of times. Other guys were great at their roles, great at what they did. And, without those role players doing their job, we would not have had success. And I really value that. But we might just be different in the way we attack and the number of shots and how it's spread out. And I think a lot of times, even coaches, not just players, but coaches look at that time, well, we got to, probably not going to be as good because we're plugging in so-and-so. And his coach comes in and he has this new problem. Like, well, one player changes everybody's role. And on offense, I think that is a really important thing to look around the corner and be prepared for is how is 1 or 2 players leaving? How is my rotation change? Should we be less in transition, more in transition? What are we going to do when the shot clock's running down now? Because that's the person we went to before. Are we going to give another person that opportunity or are we going to do it by committee? Are we going to change our approach to how we attack late shot clock? I mean, as simple as, Hey, we had a 4 that was a great rebounder, great screener, whatever. Now we got a stretch 4. How does that change everything we do? I think oftentimes coaches don't spend enough time trying to figure out how this new group, whether it's one player or 3 new players, can be the most effective on the offensive end.
I think any good coach can win a multitude of ways and evolve their own system to fit their players. And some coaches they win a certain way and then they never change because that's
Yes.
the go-to. They
Yes.
coach that way, their X's and O's are that way, and they don't evolve and adapt to their current players.
It's just what I know. It's just what I do, and I've had success doing it. So,
Yeah.
if it doesn't work, well, we just don't have good enough players. Well, it's the players' fault, right? You know what I mean? And you're right. That's what really good coaches do. They adapt. They find a way to put those players in the most successful positions they could possibly. One of the stats that I pay most attention to that not everybody has access to, but what lineups are most effective together. Just watching summer ball, high school teams this summer, been out recruiting, whatever, and watching teams play. It's like, they might have 4 really talented players on the floor, but then they're fighting for shots, and then sometimes they feel like the ball's not going to come around, so then that person takes a bad shot, and then the next person feels like it's my turn to take a bad shot. And I think to myself, you know what? You would be better off on the floor with somebody that didn't want to shoot the ball, that just wanted to screen, run the floor, offensive rebound, help people get better shots. You'd be better off with a glue person on the floor than you would, even if that other person was twice as talented as them. The team that figures out how to fit players together. Now, if you can figure out how to fit the 5 most talented players together, great. I mean, do that. But it's going to be a lot of coaching to get, player number 3 who thinks they're just slightly not as good as number 1. A good example, like the Celtics, they're, because it just came out, is like, look, there is no more important people on those teams to me than guys like White and Drew Holiday. And, I know Tatum and Brown, like they're amazing, but Drew Holiday, offensive rebounds, sit down and defend on the other end. And then he actually led them in scoring several games because he was the 3rd, 4th, 5th option sometimes. And he just took his good open shots. And like each one, Al Horford came in there, right? Like just filled his role to a T. The ability to those other guys to fill their roles, like it just made them almost unbeatable.
Basketball is a two-way game. So we like to say this, he's a great two-way player. Well, that's a good basketball player.
Trickle it down to college, high school. I think you just look at your most talented players, like we were talking about, the most skilled, can make the shots or whatever. But all of a sudden they take bad shots because they're feeling pressed because they're not getting their number of shots. Now they're shooting 38% from 2 and 29% from 3, and they don't really love defense. They may be talented and they may be killing your team. And I think a lot of coaches have a hard time spotting that, to be honest.
The culture you lay down every single day has maybe the biggest effect on your X's and O's than anything else.
Yeah, it's what you're fighting for every day. And it goes, going back to like a new player in your system or 3 new players or 2 new players or whatever, all of those people are, upholding or taking away from your culture, which directly affects, what happens on the floor. You can see your culture a little bit in their shot selection. You can see your culture in body language. You can see your culture in so many just little small things. Our job as a coach, I think, to be an effective coach is to get a group to play together unselfishly. And that's a hard thing to do. And it changes every year when you put a new player in there. So what things can you do to make it better? We talked about, you can look around the corner. You can be highly attentive to players that may not be getting along or with each other. You can look for players that are forcing shots and figure out why. Offensively, look at players and be like, where are they most effective? And are they getting shots in this place? Does your team have high clarity on what they're hunting every single time? So when somebody takes a shot out of what you're hunting, you clearly say, that's not what we're hunting. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the shot we're looking for. But so many times it's completely vague as to what we're looking for. And so I think getting to that place of clarity, and it starts over every single time you have a new player, they need to know their role, but their role affects everybody else's role. And the other players that may have had a role, their role might change. And there is a domino effect to any time that you're adding or subtracting players. And it doesn't even have to be with a new player coming in. It happens in injuries every year. And so, and I'm not saying, your best player gets injured, that all of a sudden you're going to have some great year, but can that group now achieve to the highest level of their ability, even though you just lost your best player or a mid-level player or whatever it is? But this is going to happen. And so when you lose somebody that plays a certain role in your offense, that changes everything. And you're gonna be dealing with this not just year to year, but you're gonna be dealing with this day to day. I honestly think some teams that build certain systems,
Yeah.
that I think they're better prepared to handle that, whether it's the adversity of new players each year or injuries or whatever. Like, I think it shows if your team. Now, I'm not saying you can overcome losing a great player and all of a sudden you're going to win an NBA champ. I'm not saying that, but can your team keep being competitive despite everything that comes at it because of your built-ins? Your culture is this. Like, even on the offensive end, yeah, you may lose your best shooter and you may have great offense and it comes around to a shooter that's not as good and they may miss. But what is controllable there? Is our team still moving the ball well? Are we still taking good shots? Over time, you're going to survive a lot more if people understand, buy into, look, everybody's going to have a new role. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. Everybody, like, there's going to be a lot going on, and you got to work through that, almost daily to make sure that your team is, well oiled and operating as best it possibly can in all different aspects of the game. The question about a new player coming in, I mean, look, it doesn't matter what level of basketball you're at. This is just the new norm. New players all the time. There's addition or subtraction. And it's just going to make us better as coaches to learn how to adapt to different environments. One year we have one player, another player's been with us since they were in second grade. I mean, it's just a new reality, and we've got to adapt, and we got to be able to become better coaches where we can figure out how to make these things happen on a little shorter time frame. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts, coaches. Check out pgchustle.com. He is Sam. I am TJ. We are the Hardwood Hustle.